Serendipity. On an iceberg far south in the Antarctic sat an egg. It was no ordinary egg. It was 4 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and had a distinct pink shade to it. Nobody knew what it was. The penguins and seagulls that lived on the iceberg just assumed that it had been there for a long time, and it probably had. For years and years the egg sat there, stuck in the ice, but then the iceberg began floating north. The days became warmer. Finally, the penguins and the seagulls all packed and went back to the Antarctic because they liked cold weather. The egg was left alone on an iceberg that was slowly melting. One day, a curious thing began to happen. The egg that had sat still for so many years twisted and squirmed, crickled and cracked, and finally hatched. There, standing on wobbly legs and blinking her eyes in the bright sunshine, was heaven knows what. She was big, pink, and scared. She stood there for a while, just looking at everything there was to look at. Suddenly, the iceberg rolled with a large wave, and she slid right into the water. She began floundering about, trying desperately to stay afloat, but since she had just hatched, she didn't know how to swim. She was making so much racket with her splashing and thrashing that a big walrus swam over to see what all the commotion was about. "Who or what are you?" asked the walrus. "I don't know who or what I am," she cried, and with that she flipped herself upside down. She would have drowned right there had the walrus not held her afloat. As quickly as he could, the big walrus taught her how to swim. "Well," said the walrus, "now that you've calmed down a bit, let's see if we can figure out just what you are." He slowly swam around her. She was growing right before his eyes. You're too big to be a tuna, and too small to be a whale. You have no feathers, so you can't be a bird. I just don't know what you are," said the walrus. She began to cry and cry. "I must be somebody. Why, I don't even have a name." "I may not be able to figure out what you are, but I surely can give you a name," said the walrus. "From now on, you shall be called, Serendipity. And as you cannot stay here all alone, you will come with me. I am on my way to the island of Capri, where all the fish from all over the world are to meet. Possibly they can decide what you are and what you are to do." Since Serendipity had nowhere else to go, she set out with the walrus for the island of Capri. They swam and swam into the warmer waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Every day Serendipity grew just a little bigger, until the walrus was constantly swimming in her shadow. One day, as they were hurrying on their way, they heard cries for help just over the horizon. The two of them quickly swam to investigate. There, right before them, was a dolphin trapped in a floating net. "How did you get caught in that net?" asked Serendipity. "I was swimming to the island of Capri," said the dolphin, "when a fisherman threw this net upon me. Now he has gone for help to load me into his boat." Serendipity turned to the walrus. "Should we try to help the dolphin, or should we hurry on our way?" "Always help when you can, Serendipity," said the walrus. "For as your name suggests, you will always find valuable things you are not looking for." Serendipity and the walrus set about trying to free the dolphin. But while they were busy at their task, the fisherman and his friend came back to their net. "What are you doing there?" shouted the fisherman. "Get away from my net!" And with that he tried to throw something at the walrus, who was cutting the net with his tusks. Without thinking of her own safety, Serendipity swam over to the boat. With a mighty heave she flipped it over, throwing the fisherman into the water. The fishermen sputtered about in the water, so Serendipity very carefully lifted them up and placed them on the overturned boat, where they hung on for dear life. In the meantime, the walrus had freed the dolphin, and the three quickly swam away. "I am indebted to you," said the dolphin as they rested, "for saving me from the fishermen." The dolphin looked at Serendipity and said, "I know the walrus, for he is a cousin of mine, but I've never seen anything like you before." "I don't know who or what I am," Serendipity said, "but the walrus is taking me to the island of Capri, where all the fish of all the world are meeting. They will decide what I am and what I should do." The three had swum for over 2 days when suddenly the water began to turn dirty and brown. Paper cups and bottles bobbed in the sea around them. The farther they swam, the more garbage there seemed to be, and oil floated freely on the top of the water. "What is all this?" asked Serendipity. "Unfortunately," said the dolphin, "we must swim close to the land on our journey, and the land dwellers throw their garbage into the sea." By that time they were unable to move at all because of all the garbage and junk floating in the water. "Shouldn't we dive low and swim away from all this?" asked Serendipity. She looked a little silly, for she had a banana peel stuck on her nose. "No," said the walrus, "running away won't help the water or any of the fish that live in it." Over the past few days, Serendipity had grown bigger and bigger. She now towered over the walrus and the dolphin. Because she was so big, she had more garbage and oil on her than the other two put together. To rid herself of all that dirt and grime, she began bobbing up and down in the water. In doing so, she created large waves that rolled onto the shore. Finally, as she took one last dunk, she made such a large wave that it carried all the oil, all the garbage, and all that junk, and threw it right up on the shore, and on top of all the land dwellers who had thrown it into the sea to begin with. The dolphin and the walrus laughed and cheered